Chapter 3786. When Du Fan and the others heard her words, they felt helpless and could only say, "Then we'll escort Master over." The mercenaries at the side were dumbfounded. It can't be. The pregnant Madame Xinyuan wanted to go up? What if that ferocious beast went berserk and hurt her and the child in her womb? Madame Xinyuan, that ferocious beast is no ordinary ferocious beast. It's a ferocious beast that has reached the 6th or 7th level of a divine beast. Jin Yifeng said with a frown. He felt that her actions were a little inappropriate. Feng Jiu smiled. That's why I have to go up. If they went up, no matter how strong their strength was, that divine beast-level vicious beast might not necessarily stay still obediently. Only if she went up and used the ancient divine beast pressure at her body as a deterrent, that divine beast would not dare to cause trouble. She looked around and felt that this place was not bad. She said, "Commander Jean, after we go up, I'll have to trouble you to set up a formation around us. I don't want anyone or any ferocious beast to come within 100 meters." They were already going up. Why did she still want them to set up a formation here? Jin Yifeng was surprised, but did not ask. He only said, "Madame Xinyuan, don't worry. That won't be a problem." So, under the protection of Du Fan, Lung Hua, and the others, Feng Jiu flew towards the direction of the cliff. After around the time for half an incense stick to burn, she arrived at the cliff. Passing through the fog, they saw a snow-white flower that was bigger than a fist blooming on the cliff. The red leaves and the snow-white flower were extremely dazzling. "Master, that's the Xueling flower, right?" Lung Hua looked at the blooming snow-white flower with a smile on his face. At least this trip was not in vain. That's right. This is indeed the Xueling flower. Looking at its head, it should be quite old. She was in a good mood as she spoke. Her gaze shifted and landed on a cave beside the Xueling flower. The cave was not very big, and it was pitch black as if it was bottomless. There were no ferocious beasts coming out, but the cave was faintly filled with a savage and bloodthirsty aura. "Master, I'll go and lure that beast out," Guillermo said. Just as he was about to step forward, he was stopped by Feng Jiu. "No, you don't have to go," Feng Jiu said, raising his hand to stop him. She looked at the cave entrance and adjusted the pressure in her body. Not long after, the ancient aura in her body spread out and covered the surrounding area. Not only the ferocious beasts in the cave, but even the ferocious beasts in the sky and on the ground felt the ancient aura. They all trembled and lay down, not daring to move. "Come out. Let me see what kind of beast you are." Feng Jiu's voice seemed to come from ancient times, containing a powerful and dignified aura. Just as her voice fell, a pitch-black four-legged dragon lowered its body and carefully crawled out. It did not dare to crawl out too far. It only lay at the entrance of the cave and looked at Feng Jiu. After hesitating, it asked in a trembling voice, "Do you want to kill me?" A level 6 or 7 divine beast could already speak the human language. However, beasts rarely spoke the human language. Hearing it speak now, everyone's expression was indifferent. After all, they had seen many divine beasts speak. Chapter 3787. Feng Jiu raised his eyebrows and glanced at the ferocious beast that had retracted its bloodthirsty aura, saying, "That will depend on your performance." Hearing this, the ferocious beast thought for a moment and a light bulb went off in its head. It looked at the flower at the side and asked, "You want this flower too? I can pluck it for you. Also, I've collected the snow water from the Xueling flower. I can give it to you as well." It had been guarding the Xueling flower. Every year, it would wait until it was about to wither before eating it. Usually, it would guard it and collect the snow water that dripped from the petals of the Xueling flower. It originally wanted to wait until it had collected enough before consuming it all at once to increase its strength. It did not expect to meet a human that terrified it from the bottom of its heart today. The ancient coercion that this human was emitting was too terrifying. As long as it was a beast, there was no beast that was not afraid of this ancient coercion. It guessed that this human must have formed a natal contract with an ancient divine beast. Naturally, it did not dare to offend such a powerful existence. It offered up the snow water it had collected and the Schweling flower that it had been guarding all this time just to beg for its life. This was because it did not doubt that this human had the power to crush it. Hearing the ferocious beast's words, Fengjiu's eyes flashed with surprise. "You actually know how to collect the snow water from the Schweling flower?" Seeing that this human was interested, the ferocious beast hurriedly said, "The snow water from the Schweling flower can help me advance, so I've been collecting it with the intention of consuming it all at once to break through. I've also been waiting until the flowering period of the Schweling flower is about to wither before eating it." Divine beasts like them would always guard a spiritual plant because it could bring them benefits. Otherwise, it would not have been guarding this place and occupying this territory to prevent other ferocious beasts from coming over. Hearing this, Fengjiu laughed. "Since that's the case, take out the snow water. As compensation, I can give you a pill that can help you advance." When the ferocious beast heard this, it did not think much of it. For a beast of its level to advance in rank, it couldn't just rely on ordinary medicinal pills. However, it didn't dare to say anything. Instead, it quickly returned to the cave. Not long after, it came out with a jade gourd between its teeth. It placed the jade gourd at the entrance of the cave and said, "I got this jade gourd from a cultivator. I've been using it to store snow water. I've been collecting it for a long time, but this is all I have." It looked at the jade gourd with a pained expression. It was reluctant to part with it, but it knew that nothing was more important than its life. Fengjiu waved her hand, and the jade gourd flew into her hand. She looked at the jade gourd and smiled. "It's a good treasure." She unscrewed the lid and sniffed the snow water inside. Then, she poured out a drop. The drop of water that she poured out condensed into snow in her palm. After a while, it gradually melted into a drop of ice-cold snow water. Seeing this, she nodded in satisfaction. "Not bad. It's indeed the snow water from the Schweling flower." She glanced at the ferocious beast and said, "I've always been a reciprocal person. Although the Schweling flower doesn't belong to you, you've been guarding it all this while. You've also collected the snow water. Therefore, this pill should be yours." With that, she flicked her finger and a crimson-red pill flew out from her hand and landed in front of the ferocious beast. Chapter 3788. The markings on the pill made it gulp in shock. It quickly reached out its front paw and grabbed the pill. It looked at Fengjiu and asked, Is this really for me?" "Yes," Fengjiu responded. He glanced at it and then shifted his gaze to the Schweling flower. He leaped forward and landed on the protruding part of the flower. Lung Hua, Du Fan, and the others stepped forward and quietly surrounded her. Fengjiu stood guard there for the whole night. When the first ray of sunlight shone on the next morning, she took out a tool from her space and carefully dug out the Schweling flower. Looking at the entire Schweling flower, she smiled and said to the people beside her, Let's go and refine the pill." The ferocious beast, who did not dare to move, watched them leave. Only then did it stuff the pill into its mouth and press it under its tongue. Then it quickly left and went to another place. The Schweling flower was gone, the snow water was gone, and it even met such powerful humans. Now that it was given such a heaven-defying pill, who knew when they would go back on their word and snatch the pill back? It was better for it to quickly find another place to hide and swallow the pill first before deciding what to do next. Because of the fog, the mercenaries could not see what Fengjiu and the others were doing at the cliff. They only knew that after a night, when they saw them return, everyone smiled. "Leader, they're back. They've been standing guard there for the whole night. Could they have picked the Schweling flower?" Another mercenary said and looked at Fengjiu and the others. "I didn't hear any sounds of battle." Compared to the mercenary's surprise, Genie Feng looked at Fengjiu and the others and said to everyone, "Have the surrounding formations been set up? Have you checked it thoroughly?" "Don't worry, leader. It's all set up. There's not a single animal within 100 meters." The mercenaries immediately responded, "Everyone, go back to your positions and guard. Without my orders, no one is allowed to leave." Genie Feng ordered in a deep voice. "Yes." Everyone responded and no longer gathered together to talk. Instead, They quickly went to guard the surrounding spirit array. Feng Jiao and the others descended from a high place. As soon as they landed, Feng Jiao instructed Leng Hua and the others, "You guys stay guard. I'm going to refine pills. Don't let anyone disturb me." "Yes." They responded and left Qin Xin to help out, while the others quickly spread out to guard the surroundings. When Genie Feng saw this, he asked, "Madame Xinyuan has picked the herbs? She still wanted to refine pills? Right here?" When he thought of this, he could not help but be secretly shocked. The medicinal pills that Xue Ling had refined were not ordinary. She could actually refine them? Could it be that she was an even better alchemist than the Medicine Tower's Fan Lin? Since Feng Jiao was refining pills, Genie Feng could not stay by his side. Therefore, he also retreated to guard 100 meters away. It could be said that only Leng Hua and the others were qualified to stand guard at a distance of 50 meters. Qin Xin had been learning medical skills and identifying herbs for some time. At this moment, Feng Jiao arranged for her to stay by his side and help out. After the area was cleaned and the items were placed, Feng Jiao waved his sleeve and the alchemy cauldron appeared in front of her. Chapter 3789. Qin Xin exhaled softly and nodded. "Master, please give me your orders." Although she had already learned it before, she was still a little nervous to be her master's assistant at this time. She knew that this medicinal pill was related to whether or not the Yama Lord could wake up. There was no room for error. Feng Jiao looked at the spiritual herbs on the table. She closed her eyes and once again went through the pill formula in her mind. Not long after, she opened her eyes and raised her hand. A cluster of flames flew out, and the pill furnace opened with a whoosh. The flames burned, and the aura surged as it filled the surroundings. Feng Jiao paid attention to the temperature of the fire in the furnace. When the temperature of the flames in the furnace reached the level she wanted, she immediately activated the array of the pill furnace. Remove the leaves of the heavenly heart grass and leave the roots. Peel the outer skin of the 5-colored bamboo and wait for use. Soak the petals of the 7-leaf purple spirit flower in the spiritual spring water. Take the Mu Xin from the ebony wood. As Feng Jiao spoke, she stared at the fire in the furnace. The array diagram on the pill furnace rotated due to the activation of the pill array. She looked serious and did not dare to be careless. Because there was only one Xue Ling flower, and the spiritual herbs on the table were collected for a long time before she found them. She could not afford to fail. She could only succeed in one try. As Qin Xin listened, her hands quickly processed the spiritual herbs according to her instructions. After processing each spiritual herb, she placed it on a jade plate. At this moment, she heard her master's voice and instinctively raised her head to look. Heavenly heart grass. Feng Jiao reached out to the side. Qin Xin immediately handed the processed heavenly heart grass on the table. The fire in the furnace was strong and the aura was surging. Feng Jiao could also feel the heat from the furnace. She threw the spiritual herbs into the pill furnace. At the same time, her hand reached out to Qin Xin and said the next spiritual herb to be used. Every time she took a spiritual medicine, she would take a second look to see if Qin Xin had handled it properly before putting it into the furnace. She used the spiritual power in her palm, and the pure spiritual power burned in the furnace along with her life flame. Her forehead also exuded a trace of sweat. Leng Hua and the others stood guard in the surroundings. Their gazes fell on their master, who was refining pills in the middle. They were a little worried that her body wouldn't be able to take it. After all, in addition to using spiritual power and aura, one couldn't be distracted while refining pills. One's spiritual power had to be extremely concentrated. The higher the grade of the pill, the harder it was to produce pills. It was very likely that their master would have to stand like this for an entire day. For the entire day, she couldn't relax for even a moment and had to constantly pay attention to the pills in the pill furnace. This kind of high-intensity operation was usually fine, but now that she was pregnant with twins, they were really worried that she wouldn't be able to take it. With the addition of the elixirs, the burning and roasting of the flames, the fragrance of the elixirs permeated the air. The mercenaries who were standing 100 meters away watched this scene with their eyes wide open as they stared at the red figure. Even these boorish men who didn't know how to refine pills could tell that Madame Xianyuan was extremely proficient in the art of pill refinement. Although a distance of 100 meters was a bit far, they were cultivators after all. If they wanted to, they could still see clearly at such a distance. They were very curious and disgusted. However, when they saw the serious expressions on the faces of Madame Xianyuan's subordinates, they were stunned and didn't dare to say a word. They just watched quietly. Chapter 3790. However, those beasts that had already gained spiritual intelligence didn't come over at this time, but instead stared at it from 100 meters away. Fengjiu, who was standing in front of the pill furnace, turned his palm, and the spiritual herbs in his hand flew into the furnace. Some of the spiritual herbs in his hand had to be processed again before they were put into the furnace. The steps were so complicated that it was dazzling. Qin Xian handled the spiritual herbs on the table according to her master's instructions, then stood to the side and watched. This was the first time she was watching her master concoct pills from his side. She only knew that her master's concoction technique was skillful and natural. Her control of the amount of medicine added into the furnace and the furnace fire could be said to have reached the point of perfection. Even if she was watching from the side, she still couldn't understand the essence of it. She saw her master open up the wind array of the pill furnace, and with a whoosh, the fire in the furnace burned even more fiercely. After burning for a while, the intensity of the fire became gentle. Following her master's addition of one medicine after another, the medicinal smell that permeated the furnace was no longer a single medicinal smell, but many different medicinal smells that permeated the air. Some distance away, a group of 70 to 80 mercenaries were walking in the forest. When some of them smelled the medicinal smell that filled the air, they couldn't help but stop. "Big brother, there's a medicinal smell in the air. It seems to be coming from that direction," the man said and pointed in the direction of Fengjiu's group. Even if they didn't see anyone there, the medicinal smell couldn't be blocked. A tall and thin man behind them smelled the medicinal smell, and a trace of light flashed through his eyes. He walked forward and said, "There should be someone refining pills here. From the medicinal smell, this medicinal pill is not ordinary." The man in the lead had a fierce expression on his face, and his physique was that of a tiger's waist and a bear's back. At this time, when he heard their words, he narrowed his eyes and looked in the direction that the man was pointing. "Oh, this medicinal smell is not ordinary? How is it different?" He retracted his gaze and looked at the tall and thin man who spoke. "Leader, just by smelling the medicinal aroma, I can smell no less than 7 or 8 types of extremely rare spiritual herbs. If any of these spiritual herbs were to be sold outside, they would be worth thousands of gold coins. Now that so many precious spiritual herbs have been mixed together to refine a pill, even if I can't see how this pill looks like, I can guess that this pill must be extremely precious." As the lanky man spoke, he stroked his mustache and smiled. "Besides, isn't the Shui-Ling flower in front of us?" The person who led the way said that the Shui-Ling flower was at the cliff in front of us. Maybe someone else got there first and picked it. Hearing this, the man in the lead narrowed his eyes and sneered. "Plucked? That's our mission for this trip. Even if they took it, we'll make them spit it out." However, the man's voice paused, and his face revealed a ruthless expression. "I'd like to know who picked the Shui-Ling flower before us, and who's using it to refine medicine here. If the Shui-Ling flower has really been plucked, then we'll keep an eye on those who are refining the pill. When they're done refining the pill, we'll snatch the pill." "Big brother, good idea. Leader is wise," the two people at the side immediately said. As soon as they finished speaking, they looked at each other and then looked away. Chapter 3791. "Yes, sir," the man responded in a loud voice. Then, he quickly called out to a few people behind him. Raising his chi, he rushed toward the cliff. The man in the lead looked at the other 2 men and ordered, "Number 4, Number 7, the 2 of you lead some people to scout ahead. Find out who those people in front of us are. How many people are there? Don't act rashly and alert the enemy. Once you're done, come back and report to me." "All right," We'll go now." Two men with scars on their faces walked out. They waved their hands and led a small team of about 15 people forward quickly to scout ahead. "The rest of you rest here," the man shouted and asked the others to rest. Then he looked at the tall and skinny man and said, "Come over here and tell me. Based on the smell of the medicine, can you tell what the effects of the pill are?" As he said that, he walked towards a tree and sat down. The tall and skinny man paused for a moment, then followed him and sat down beside him. He said, "Leader, it's hard to say. After all, each pill master uses different ingredients. Furthermore, I can only smell a few of the herbs. It's really hard to tell what kind of pill the other party is refining." As he said that, he glanced at the man. Seeing that the man's face had darkened because of his words, he was obviously not satisfied with the answer. So, he quickly said, "However, those herbs are all rare items. Furthermore, the shui ling flower's medicinal effect is to clear the veins and remove impurities and produce new blood. So, I think that no matter what kind of pill it is, it must be an extremely precious pill. However, the prerequisite is that the other party is able to successfully refine it." As he said that, he stroked the mustache above his lips and said calmly, "It's just that it's not that easy to use the shui ling flower in medicine, even though the smell of the medicine is now pervading the forest. As long as the pill hasn't been condensed into a pill, I can't say that the pill will definitely be refined successfully." Hearing this, the man took a sip of water, pondered for a moment, and said, "Looking at the entire continent, there are only a few people who truly possess superb alchemy skills. Normally speaking, most people wouldn't refine pills here unless they absolutely had to." As he spoke, a light flashed across his eyes as he continued, "Currently, some dark forces outside are recruiting alchemists. This alchemist daring to perform alchemy here. It seems that in addition to being extremely confident in his alchemy technique, there's also a powerful figure following and protecting him. Otherwise, how could he have the courage to perform alchemy in such a place?" Hearing his words, the tall and thin man's mouth twitched as he looked at him and asked, "Commander, are you planning to recruit that person if possible?" "Recruit? Huh." The man narrowed his eyes and a cold smile appeared on his face. "I don't intend to keep such a person by my side. Who knows when the pills I eat will be tampered with, and I won't even know if I die." He rubbed his wrist as a light flashed across his malicious eyes. "However, although I'm not interested, there are many people outside who are. The people here were already planning, but they didn't know that the people they were eyeing were not a group of ordinary cultivators, but Azuras from hell who specialized in reaping the lives of certain people." Chapter 3792. Jin Yifeng's eyes narrowed. He felt a gust of wind blow past him, followed by the faint smell of blood in the air and the faint sound of something falling to the ground. His heart tightened, and he turned around abruptly. Not far away, he saw a few lifeless corpses. He was shocked and immediately rushed forward, but he did not expect another corpse to be thrown out. The next moment, he saw Du Fan walk out from behind the tree with a fan in his hand. His expression was normal, without a trace of fierceness, as if the people on the ground were not killed by him. "Leader Jin, I'll have to trouble you to deal with these corpses." Du Fan smiled, his face full of friendliness. He gently fanned his chest with the fan in his hand, and after saying that, he continued to walk back to his original position. Huilang walked out from the other side, and, after taking a look, he also returned to his original position of guard. In the dark, Ying Yi observed the surrounding scene from the tree, silently blending into the forest. Leader, a few mercenaries walked over, wanting to say something, but after looking at the corpses on the ground, they could not say a word. What else could they say? What else was there to say? After taking a deep breath, Jin Yifeng walked forward to take a look. After seeing the things left behind by the dead, he frowned slightly. These are the underground mercenaries. Since they appeared here, it probably means that there are more of them. Hearing this, the mercenaries' hearts sank. The underground mercenaries are ruthless, and they often do things like robbing and killing in places like this. Now that their members have appeared here, their team is probably not far from here. If they know that their people are dead, I'm afraid that Genie Feng pondered and said, let's deal with the corpses first. I'll go and inform young Master Du. After saying this, he walked towards Du Fan. Young Master Du, I have something to tell you. Genie Feng said, even though he knew that the man in front of him was only a subordinate of Madame Xin Yuan. He did not dare to be disrespectful or presumptuous. Du Fan looked at him and asked, what is it? Those mercenaries are underground mercenaries. Just now, there were only a dozen of them killed by you. I think their team should be nearby. Now that the dozen of them are dead, the people in the team will definitely come here. When the time comes, they will probably fight. Hearing this, Du Fan closed the fan in his hand and put his hand behind his back. He smiled and said, since they're here, it's no big deal. Do what needs to be done. Don't think too much, just stay there and guard. We're here for everything. Hearing this, Genie Feng's anxious heart finally calmed down. He replied. He turned and walked back to his original position. The mercenaries were resting and waiting for the scout to return. However, after waiting for a long time, even the people who went to the cliff to check had returned. There was still no sign of the scout. Big brother, the swelling flower above has been dug away. I heard that there was a ferocious beast guarding there, but it's gone. A man said and brought people to the rest of the team. Looks like it was dug away by the people who refined the pills. He had already guessed this, so he was not surprised when he heard this answer. Chapter 3793. They're not back yet. The leader spoke in a gloomy voice. His sinister gaze fell upon the forest in front of him. No one knew what he was thinking. Seeing this, everyone looked at each other in dismay. Someone asked, Leader, why don't we go ahead and take a look at the situation? The leader glanced at the man who had spoken and said, no need. Let's wait a little longer. If they're not back by sunset, there's an 80 to 90% chance that they've been ambushed. He paused and narrowed his eyes. If they've been ambushed, you won't be able to escape death. You won't be able to bring back any information. When everyone heard this, they looked at each other and asked, so we're just going to wait like this? Just wait. Even if we're going to take action, we'll have to wait until nightfall. Before that, eat and sleep well to restore our energy. Yes, they replied, and each found a place to sit down and rest. Some took out some leftover roasted meat from last night from the space and ate it. Some closed their eyes and rested. They waited until the sun had set. The weather in the forest suddenly turned cold as night fell. The people who had been sent out to scout had yet to return. Actually, as time passed, even though they didn't say anything, they knew in their hearts that if it wasn't for the fact that something had happened, they would have returned long ago. Since they still hadn't returned, it could only mean that they wouldn't be able to return. Since the people who had been sent out to scout hadn't returned, they could only wait until nightfall to make their move. With the cover of the night and the other party's laxity, it was the best time for them to make their move. Seeing the leader stand up, the rest of the mercenaries followed suit. At this moment, the tall and thin man saw this and asked, Leader, do you plan to make your move tonight? That's right. He narrowed his eyes, and a vicious look flashed across his eyes. I'd like to see who dares to lay a hand on my people. But that pill master's pill hasn't been refined yet. If we make our move tonight, I'm afraid it'll affect the refinement of the pill. He frowned slightly. Naturally, he knew that if they made their move, the pill master wouldn't be able to refine the pill. If he were to refine the Shui Ling flower, wouldn't that be a waste of the pill? The leader glanced at him and said, How do you know that the pill master will be able to refine the pill? The tall and thin man choked and couldn't speak for a long time. That's right. Until the last moment. All of you follow me. The leader raised his hand and gestured. Then he walked forward. The mercenaries behind him quickly followed without hesitation. Li. In that empty space, Qin Xin was already standing to the side, while Feng Jiu was controlling the fire and pill formation in the cauldron. She hadn't stopped for the entire day, especially now that all the spirit herbs had been thrown into the cauldron, waiting for the pills to condense. 2. Chapter 3794. Mistress, do you want Qin Xin to help you massage your shoulders? Qin Xin saw that her mistress was only guarding the furnace and paying attention to the temperature of the fire. She knew that she didn't need to do anything else, but wait for the herbs to fuse and condense into the elixir. Thus, she wanted to help her mistress massage her shoulders so that she could relax and not be so tired. Fengjiu had been busy for the whole day, and her shoulders were a little stiff. Thus, she said, "Okay, help me loosen my shoulders." "Yes," Qin Xian replied with a smile. She went behind Fengjiu and helped her massage her shoulders to loosen her muscles and bones. Fengjiu ate the spirit fruit while looking at the furnace in the furnace. She smelled the fragrance of the herbs in the air. With a flip of her palm, a stream of air flew into the furnace. The burning flames became a little smaller, like a warm fire that was slowly refining the herbs in the furnace. Du Fan and the others looked around. Although there was an array around them, they knew that someone was trying to break through the array based on the sounds that came from the array. "You guys stay here. I'll go out with Hui Lang and the others to take a look," Du Fan said to Lung Hua and Lung Shuang and the others. Then he led the others out. Unexpectedly, before they could get out of the array, they heard a rumbling sound. The array was broken. Du Fan and the others stopped and looked at the broken array in surprise. They were a little surprised. This array was set up by Genie Feng and his mercenaries. They didn't get involved. However, this array had strong defensive power. Now that it was broken so easily, it seemed that these underground mercenaries were really skilled. "Are you the ones who killed our brothers?" The leader of the group walked out, followed by a group of mercenaries. They stared ahead, and their gazes fell on Du Fan and the others. They looked like they were in their 20s or 30s and looked like young masters. They didn't take them seriously. Their gazes swept past them and landed on Genie Feng behind them. Their eyes flashed slightly. Jean Feng, the leader of the first mercenary group? The leader stared at Genie Feng with an unknown, deep meaning in his eyes. "Exactly," Genie Feng replied in a low voice. He walked over to Du Fan and the others and looked at them. "What do you want?" "Ha ha." Hearing Genie Feng's words, the man in the lead raised his head and laughed loudly. His laughter was arrogant and conceited. Suddenly, he stopped and stared at Genie Feng with a vicious and bloodthirsty expression. "What do you want to do? Shouldn't we be the ones asking you what you want?" Originally, he thought that would be a very large and strong team, but he didn't expect that there would only be so few people here. Even if they were protected by the number 1 mercenary group, they would not be able to defeat so many people. Moreover, he had long wanted to experience the skills of the number 1 mercenary group leader, Genie Feng. He took a step forward, and a vicious voice came out of his mouth. "You killed more than 10 of my brothers, huh? I won't let it go so easily." Genie Feng frowned slightly, but he didn't say anything. He just pulled out the sword at his waist and said, "Since you want to fight, I'll keep you company. I've long wanted to experience the skills of the number 1 mercenary group leader. It just so happens that I have a chance to fight with you today. I couldn't ask for more." As the leader spoke, he waved his hand, and a long sword appeared in his hand. Chapter 3795. He saw a red-clothed woman with a big belly sitting in front of the furnace. He only saw the woman's stunning side profile. With just one glance, his body involuntarily trembled, and he instinctively took a step back. She is that the man who had been vicious and ruthless a moment ago had now turned pale. There was fear in his eyes as he took a step back. The cold sweat on his forehead and his trembling body were telling others that he was extremely terrified at this moment. "Leader, what's wrong?" The man next to him saw this and couldn't help but ask in a low voice. At this time, the leader of the underground black mercenary group didn't seem to hear the words of the mercenary beside him. His eyes were wide open in horror as he looked at the beautiful woman in red who was about 100 meters away. He only felt his heart beating violently, and he was so nervous that he couldn't even speak. In his mind, he couldn't help but think of the news he got from the underground black market a few months ago, as well as the portrait that was destroyed after just one glance. A few months ago, a group of mysterious people killed a peak master of the immortal sect and crippled more than a dozen of their disciples. As a few months passed, it seemed that people had forgotten about them. However, since he saw the portrait and heard those things that time, he couldn't forget them. First, it was because the woman in the portrait was extremely beautiful. Just one glance was unforgettable. Second, it was because of the thunderous means that made people shudder. He couldn't forget such a person even if he wanted to. Feng Jiu waved her hand, indicating for Qin Xin to step back. At the same time, she took a step forward to the cauldron. Her spirit force gushed forth as she added a few drops of snow water into the cauldron. At the next moment, the atmosphere in the surroundings changed. In the pitch-black night, there seemed to be muffled sounds of thunder. This is the pill thunder? The tall and thin man who followed behind and didn't step forward saw the strange phenomenon in the sky and couldn't help but open his eyes wide. Sure enough, just as his voice fell, he heard a crackling sound in the sky. Then, a heavenly thunder rumbled and struck the furnace. Boom! A powerful aura surged, and the loud sound shook the ground slightly, not to mention the pressure and movement spreading in the dark night. Feng Jiu didn't have the time to pay attention to those underground mercenaries. At this time, she was standing in front of the pill furnace, and her hands were quickly forming a seal, and a pure aura flowed into the pill furnace. In other parts of the forest, some people were surprised when they saw this strange phenomenon in the night sky. They were all resting in the forest when they suddenly noticed that something was wrong with the aura surging in the night sky. Is this the evolution of a dire beast? How is that possible? Even if ferocious beasts evolve, there might not necessarily be heavenly lightning. What could it be? Look at the strange phenomenon in the night sky. That kind of strange phenomenon should be the birth of a rare and precious medicinal pill, someone said excitedly, pointing at the strange phenomenon in the night sky. As soon as he finished speaking, he took a deep breath and headed in that direction, intending to see what was going on. Go! Who knows, they might be able to do something big. Ha 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 ha. The birth of a top-grade medicinal pill would definitely cause a lot of people to fight for it. In this forest, in addition to some people who were training, there were also some people who had various reasons to come in. Therefore, when they saw the strange phenomenon, they all had an idea and headed in that direction one by one. Chapter 3796. A loud rumble reverberated through almost half of the forest. The ground shook because of the rumble, and all the beasts in the forest looked up at the sky, smelling the medicinal fragrance that permeated the forest. Some of the beasts sniffed with all their might as they headed in that direction. Just by smelling the aroma of the spiritual medicine, they could feel the blood in their bodies pulsing. It was a feeling of extreme excitement, a kind of impulsive desire. In the darkness of the night, some people in the forest rushed towards the place where the lightning struck. However, some of them were too far away. Even if they rushed over, they probably wouldn't be able to reach it in a short period of time. At the place where Feng Jiu was refining pills, 100 meters away, the mercenary group leader's expression changed greatly as he quickly retreated. His heart sank as he looked at the smiling man holding a fan standing not far in front of him, as well as the outstanding men and women around him. I really didn't mean to offend you. We'll leave immediately. Leave immediately, the mercenary group leader said with a pale face as he stared vigilantly at Du Fan and the others, afraid that they would suddenly attack him. At this moment, he finally knew why the people he sent out to find out didn't return. It turned out that they had met a group of people like them. Looking at the shocked expression of the mercenary group leader, the smile on Du Fan's face deepened. He fanned himself with the fan in his hand and asked, "Do you know who we are?" It was a light sentence. Although he had a smile on his face and looked amiable, the mercenary group leader's forehead was covered in cold sweat. "I don't know." The mercenary group leader wiped his sweat and said with a trembling voice, "Have you seen my master?" Du Fan asked again with a smile. He released his aura and enveloped the mercenary group leader's body. The powerful aura that fell on him was like a mountain pressing down on him, making it hard for him to breathe and unable to straighten his back. He knew that if Xianwen didn't know, she would probably attack him. Therefore, he said with a trembling voice, I saw the portrait on the wanted poster in the underground black market. At that time, I saw the portrait of your noble master. I only saw it once. Really, that's all." Hearing this, Du Fan nodded. I see. Seeing that he didn't say anything and just stared at him, he didn't know what he was thinking. That mercenary leader didn't dare to move an inch. He braced himself and stood there, allowing Lin Li to size him up. He didn't dare to open his mouth. After a long while, he couldn't stand the oppressive atmosphere anymore. Then he mustered up his courage and asked, Sir, can we leave now? If he had known that these people were the ones on the wanted posters, he wouldn't have come even if they offered him a large sum of money. These people's ferocious reputation had long been secretly spread. After the people from the Immortal Sect, they had consecutively exterminated several clans that had sent their portraits to the bounty posters. Until now, whenever this matter was mentioned, the underground forces would tremble in fear. Du Fan glanced at him, then looked at Lung Hua and asked, What do you think? Lung Hua glanced at them and said, Master's medicinal pills are about to come out of the cauldron. The commotion caused by the heavenly thunder is not small. The cultivators in the surrounding area have probably heard the commotion and rushed over. Let them stand guard in the surroundings. Chapter 3797. No problem, no problem. Leave this to us. We'll definitely guard the surroundings and not let anyone come near. He hurriedly promised, only hoping that these people wouldn't attack them. Although he was an extremely vicious person and wasn't weak, he knew that he was far from being a match for these people. If he insisted on going against them, it would be like hitting a rock with an egg. He would be seeking his own death. Now that they finally had such an opportunity, they naturally had to grasp it well and strive to survive. Go! Du Fan gestured and stood there watching. Yes. The mercenary group leader hurriedly responded and hurriedly led his mercenaries to the surroundings, spreading out to guard. This scene made the 20 mercenaries behind him dumbfounded. What was going on? Why was even the extremely vicious underground mercenaries afraid of them? Who exactly were they? Jin Yifeng's heart trembled slightly. Although they had seen too many shocking and even inconceivable things along the way, seeing the fearless underground mercenaries actually begging for mercy and even guarding the surroundings still made him feel incredulous. Boom! The third bolt of lightning struck, shaking his mind and clearing his mind. He instinctively looked towards the pill furnace and saw Madame Xuanyuan's palms flipping rapidly. The spiritual aura in the furnace seemed to be rushing towards the core of the furnace at this moment. It was also at this moment that the sound of fighting seemed to be faintly heard from 100 meters away. He immediately tensed up and shouted in a low voice, Be alert! The 20 mercenaries didn't dare to be careless. They guarded the surroundings tightly and listened to the battle in the pitch-black night. It seemed to be the battle between the ferocious beasts and the underground mercenaries. There were also some clanging sounds of the blades of other cultivators clashing. The people from the Ouyang family who had been hurrying towards this direction heard the 3 bolts of lightning in the sky and looked in that direction. The old man's eyes flashed and he shouted, Quick! Speed up and advance. The group of people moved swiftly in the night and rushed towards that direction. At the same time, Feng Jiu was completing the final step in the pill furnace. After the pill was condensed and formed, she clapped her palms, and a pill emitting a pure white light flew out of the pill furnace. When the pill came out of the furnace, a rich medicinal fragrance assailed their nostrils. She looked at the pill that was as white as moonlight, and her heart was filled with excitement. She had never been so excited even when she had refined a 9th-grade medicinal pill in the past. At this moment, as she watched this medicinal pill take shape, the rims of her eyes involuntarily turned slightly hot. She had finally succeeded. With this pill, Mose would definitely wake up. With a wave of his hand, he opened a pill bottle and placed the moonlight pill into it. Then, he closed the lid and put it into the space. After storing the pills into her space, her heart finally settled down. She slowly exhaled a breath of relief. Congratulations, Master! Qin Exen, who was beside her, smiled happily. She was also very happy. Feng Jiu's lips curled up into a smile. Her eyes twinkled as she said, This cauldron of pills took me an entire day to refine. There were 3 pills, but in the end, only one was successful. The other 2 were useless. However, one is already enough. Creek. Chapter 3798. There were no pills in the furnace. For fear that the flesh-eating crow's flapping wings would hurt her, she quickly retreated and covered her belly with one hand. Qin Xin also protected Fengjiu behind her at the first time. She did not attack, but just protected Fengjiu and retreated, so as not to hurt the child. Lung Shuang and others also stepped forward at the first time. Ying Yi's sword was extremely fast. No one knew where it came from, but in an instant, it chopped at the flesh-eating crow that was trying to get into the furnace to grab the pills. The flesh-eating crow flopped. At the moment when it dodged Ying Yi's attack, its whole body directly got into the furnace. As soon as it got in, its wings fluttered inside, making a flopping sound, as well as a cry as if it was scalded. Fengjiu looked at the scene with some astonishment. He saw that the flesh-eating crow actually got into the furnace and was still fluttering its wings inside. Perhaps affected by the heat of the furnace, the flesh-eating crow's feathers fell a lot in its fluttering. Because the pills refined in the furnace had to be taken orally, and the flesh-eating crow was a beast that ate carrion, Fengjiu frowned and walked out from behind Qin Xin. He turned his palm, and a stream of air shot out. The flesh-eating crow that was fluttering in the furnace was knocked out by a force from the furnace. Squeak! Whoa! A scream sounded, followed by a slightly hoarse cry. A mass of black flew out, and the next moment, it was chopped in midair by the sword Qi. Whoosh! The sharp sword Qi cut through, and blood splashed on the grass. The flesh-eating crow's body was cut in two and fell into the weeds. Fengjiu glanced at the flesh-eating crow and looked around. She saw that there were flying beasts on the trees, not far away, and pairs of eyes were staring at her. Seeing this, she frowned slightly. Walking forward, she came to the side of the pill furnace. She saw that the two dark black pills in the pill furnace had been flapped by the carnivorous crows and had rolled to the edge of the pill furnace. There were also a few carnivorous crow feathers in the furnace. Thus, with a move of her palm, a ball of flame flew out from her hand and once again ignited the furnace. In a short while, the few feathers inside were burned clean. She put away the two black pills and thought to herself, although these two pills are useless, I wonder what kind of problems will occur if I consume them. She put away the pills, and, with a flick of her sleeve, the furnace was also put into her space. The roars of ferocious beasts and the clanging of swords and sabers made her frown in displeasure. Cloud swallowing. A light flashed, and the cloud-swallowing beast came out of the space and stood in front of her. Master, you've been in there for a long time. Go take a walk around, Fengjiu said, and the corners of her lips curled up slightly. Her eyes twinkled with an indescribable smile. Hearing this, Cloud Swallowing understood her meaning. It immediately responded and took a step forward. It raised its head and roared. Roar! Following that roar, a powerful sacred beast aura spread out. The airflow that could be seen with the naked eye was like ripples in water. It shocked the beasts on the trees and the fierce beasts in the forest, and they all turned around and ran for their lives. Bang, 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 bang. Chapter 3799. Some of the cultivators who had rushed over from the forest saw the beasts running around in a frenzy. They were so shocked that they quickly hid their cultivation aura to prevent themselves from being targeted and attacked by these crazy beasts. The surrounding beasts were all running around. Chaotic howls and the sound of trees being knocked down could be heard from time to time. This caused the dark night to become restless and made people feel uneasy, especially when Tunyun leaped and circled around the area. The beasts ran even faster. Some of the beasts even lowered their bodies and crawled away in order to quickly leave the place that made them feel fearful and uneasy. Compared to the chaos and fear of the surrounding beasts, Fengjiu was much calmer. Especially after the surrounding beasts had all run away, not a single sound was made. Master, are you tired? Do you want to rest for a while? Qin Xin asked, seeing that she had been busy refining the pill without resting and had only eaten a spiritual fruit to replenish her strength. She was really worried that her body wouldn't be able to take it. Because she had successfully refined the pill, Fengjiu was more happy than tired. However, she couldn't wait to give the pill to Mose and see his body's reaction after taking the pill. Thus, she said, "Guard the surroundings. I'll rest for a while and leave tomorrow." As soon as she finished speaking, she waved her sleeves, and a flying ship appeared in the empty space in front of her. The flying ship gradually grew in size and occupied the entire empty space. After instructing them, Fengjiu led Lung Shuang and Qin Xian onto the flying ship. Once they were on the flying ship, she directly went to the cabin where she could rest. She closed the door and flashed into the space. "Say, I've refined the pill." Fengjiu couldn't hide her joy as she quickly walked to the ice bed. When she came to the side and saw Xianyuan Mose lying on the ice bed, she couldn't help but hold his hand and pull it close to her lips to kiss it. "Say, I've refined the pill," she said again. This time, her voice was gentle and steady, filled with joy and excitement. She didn't immediately take out the pill for him to take. Instead, she held his hand and checked his body's condition. Then, she used silver needles to move several major acupuncture points on his body. When she felt the flow of energy in his body, she took out the pill and stuffed it into his mouth. She gently lifted his chin and let the pill slide down his throat. Then, she took out a bottle of spiritual liquid and poured it into his mouth. She let the spiritual liquid slide down his throat and helped him swallow the pill smoothly. She pressed her palm against his heart, and a pure spiritual aura entered his body through her palm, dispelling the cold air on his body. She stood guard by his side and checked his pulse from time to time. As time passed, she couldn't help but smile when she felt that his pulse was beating more and more vigorously. That night, she stood guard beside the ice bed, watching and paying attention to the changes in his body. In the end, she couldn't take it anymore and leaned against the side to sleep. "Master," the contracted beasts saw that she had actually fallen asleep on the ice bed and were worried that her body couldn't take the cold air. Thus, they used all their strength to help her up and bring her to the other bed to rest. Chapter 3800. When Lao Bai, who was squatting by the ice bed, saw Xianyuan Mose's fingers move slightly, he could not help but widen his eyes. He leaned forward to take a closer look and asked, "Do you think his hand is moving?" The little beast stared at Xianyuan Mose's hand. After a long while, they saw it move again. They said in unison, "It moved. It really moved. Is he going to wake up?" Sure enough, they saw his hand move again. Lao Bai did not know how he was doing, so he came to Fengjiu's side and said, "Master, Master, the Yama Lord's hand is moving." "Master," Fengjiu faintly heard a voice saying that the Yama Lord's hand was moving. She almost instinctively opened her eyes and jumped up from the bed. "Master, the Yama Lord seems to be waking up. His hand is moving," Lao Bai said hurriedly. Hearing this, Fengjiu quickly got out of bed and walked towards the ice bed. She came to his side and checked his body. When she put her fingers on his pulse, her nervous heart suddenly jumped, and her eyes were filled with surprise. She took out a silver needle and inserted it into his body again. When she put away the silver needle, she saw the eyelashes of the person who had been sleeping soundly tremble slightly, and he slowly opened his eyes. Fengjiu called out softly. This call was filled with unconcealable joy and excitement. She held his hand and felt his hand gently holding hers back. Xianyuan Mose opened his heavy eyelids. When he saw her dressed in red beside him, the corners of his lips curled up slightly, revealing a smile. "Ajio." His voice was very soft, and he sounded very weak. However, hearing his soft call, Fengjiu's eyes turned red. "Yes, I'm here. She held his hand and pressed his hand tightly against her face. Xianyuan Mose closed his eyes slightly, but there was a smile on his face. Seeing that she was fine in front of him, he was relieved. "Master, the Yama Lord has fallen asleep again." Lao Bai leaned forward to take a look. Seeing that he had fallen asleep again, he could not help but turn back to look at Fengjiu. Fengjiu smiled and said, "He just woke up and his body is still very weak. Let him sleep. It will gradually get better." As long as he woke up, she could slowly nurse his weak body back to health. She took a step back and a gust of air rushed out, lifting Xin Yuan Mose from the ice bed and sending him to the bed. Now that he had woken up after taking the pill, there was no need for him to use the ice bed anymore. Right now, she had to prepare some medicine to help him recuperate so that he could recover as soon as possible. After she covered him with a blanket, she looked at Senior White and the others and said, "All of you take care of him while he's here. I'll come in once I have the time." "Master, don't worry. We know what to do," Senior White replied and grinned, revealing a mouthful of white teeth. Fengjiu nodded and then left the space. As soon as he returned to the cabin, Lung Shuang's voice came from outside. "Master, are you awake?" Fengjiu opened the door of the cabin, looked at the two people standing outside, and asked, "What's the matter?" Lung Shuang looked at Fengjiu and said, "Master, the other things have been taken care of. However, we caught a group of people from the Ouyang family. They were sneakily using medicine around last night and were caught by the mercenaries. Now they're waiting outside for Master to deal with them." Chapter 38:01. At this moment, about 50 meters away from the airship, the remaining 20 or so members of the Ouyang clan were tied to a tree with ashen faces. Compared to the old man's viciousness and unwillingness, the Ouyang clan head's expression was one of regret. If he had known this would happen, he would have brought his men and left this place. At least, he wouldn't have ended up like this. Jin Yifeng glanced at the Ouyang clan head and couldn't help but sigh in his heart. He didn't think that they would follow them. Not only did they follow them, they even tried to use drugs to treat them. Now that they had ended up like this, even if he wanted to plead for mercy, he couldn't bring himself to do it. The underground mercenaries had already left. Because there were many casualties after last night, Du Fan saw that they didn't have any more tricks up their sleeves and let them leave. At this moment, there were only Jin Yifeng's mercenaries, the Ouyang clan's people, and Fengjiu's group left. When Fengjiu, dressed in red, slowly walked over, the old man raised his head and glared at her fiercely. Which? Fengjiu raised her eyebrows. She really didn't know where the word which came from. "Which? You colluded with the underground mercenaries and even used witchcraft. The surrounding beasts don't dare to come close. Even the number 1 mercenary group, Jin Yifeng, was used by you. What are your intentions? Were you scheming?" Hearing this, Fengjiu smiled. "What a joke. You have ulterior motives. You're greedy by nature and scheming against others. Now that you've ended up like this, you don't know how to repent. You've really opened my eyes." She glanced at him and ordered Du Fan, "This old man, cripple his cultivation and throw him out of my sight." Du Fan was surprised. He thought that his master would directly order them to be killed. He didn't expect that she didn't order to kill him, but to cripple his cultivation. However, in this kind of place where beasts were everywhere, without his cultivation to protect his life, it was almost impossible for him to survive. Thinking about it, his master just didn't want to stain her hands with the blood of such people. Thus, he agreed and walked to the front and back. He said to the 2 mercenaries, "Bring him over." The 2 mercenaries glanced at Jin Yifeng, and after seeing him nod his head imperceptibly, they went forward to untie him and brought him in front of Du Fan. "Kill me if you dare. This old man is not afraid of death." The old man gritted his teeth and roared. His eyes were like a ferocious beast as he stared at Du Fan and Fengjiu with a bloodthirsty glint. He struggled to rush forward, but unfortunately, all his major acupoints had been sealed. Moreover, there were 2 mercenaries holding him down. Seeing this, the Ouyang family head moved his lips. However, he did not say anything in the end. He couldn't even protect himself, so what else could he say? "Kill you. You should be thanking the heavens and earth that my master didn't kill you and crippled your cultivation and spared your life." Du Fan snorted coldly. The next moment, he struck out with his palm and shattered the inner core in his dantian. No one else could hear the sound. Only the old man himself knew that when the palm landed, the force accurately hit his nidin. With a cracking sound, his nidin instantly shattered, and his cultivation gushed out madly with the shattering of his nidin. It quickly rushed out his body, and his body was rapidly aging. Chapter 38:02. They watched as the elder's cultivation was crippled. They watched as his body rapidly shrank. His entire person aged at a speed visible to the naked eye. His original appearance could not be seen at all. They were shocked and panicked. They were afraid that they would end up like this. The elder's cultivation was completely gone, and his entire person became so old that his teeth fell to the ground. His back was bent, and his body was trembling. He curled up on the ground and did not even have the strength to cry out. "Throw him somewhere where he can't be seen." Du Fan ordered the two mercenaries to do it. The two mercenaries stepped forward and dragged him up. After throwing him away, they returned. Fortunately, because Feng Jiu and the rest were in the main area, the ferocious beast did not dare to come near. Therefore, for a while, the elder was still lying in the weeds on the verge of death. The people of the Ouyang family were all tensed up. Even the young men and women didn't dare to breathe loudly at this time. They all lowered their heads and didn't dare to look at Feng Jiu and the others, fearing that they would be the next to be crippled. "Tell me, how should we deal with you?" Feng Jiu asked. His gaze swept across the people and finally landed on the Ouyang clan head. "I clearly told you not to provoke us. Why didn't you listen?" The Ouyang clan head looked at Feng Jiu and said, "Madam, please give us another chance. As long as you're willing to let us live, I, Ouyang Yuan, will never forget it." "Let you live? And what did you do? Want to use medicine to deal with us?" Feng Jiu sneered. "I've always been a person who clearly distinguishes between kindness and hatred. Repaying evil with good is not my nature." Ouyang Yuan's heart couldn't help but sink. He opened his mouth, but no words came out. Indeed, she had already warned them to leave and not follow them. But they still came. They even listened to the elder's words and used medicine to deal with them. They were confident that even if they knew how to refine pills, they would not be able to distinguish the smell in the air. But who knew? "Madam Xianyuan, could you spare their lives?" In the end, Genie Feng still opened his mouth to plead for them. After all, he and Ouyang Yuan were friends. Regardless of whether his words would work or not, he felt that he should try. Feng Jiu glanced at him and said with a half-smile, "You want to plead for him?" Genie Feng felt his scalp go numb when she looked at him like that. However, now that things had come to this, he could only brace himself and say, "Although I know that I shouldn't, I still hope that Madame Xianyuan can spare their lives. If I let them live today, they might take my life in the future." Feng Jiu said casually. Although she didn't think that they had the right to take her words, she knew that if she let them go, things wouldn't end like this. "Madame Xianyuan, we are willing to make a curse. We don't dare to expect to be your subordinates, but we are willing to go through fire and water for you, just for a chance to live because we don't want to die." Ouyang Yuan said. Even if he had to use his life as a curse, he still hoped to live at this time. Chapter 38:03. Hearing this, Ouyang Yuan was stunned for a moment. His body trembled, and he could not hide his excitement. "Thank you, madam." Extracting a strand of divine sense and putting their lives in their hands was better than dying here. Moreover, he felt that this madam was not a bloodthirsty person. Otherwise, she would not have spared them so easily. "Father, we don't have to die." A woman next to him asked Ouyang Yuan in a trembling voice. Ouyang Yuan took a deep breath and said, "From this moment on, you must remember Madame Xuanyuan's kindness. You must not have a trace of resentment, and you must not spread what happened here." Yes, nearly 100 people came out, but now there were only 20 or so people left. These 20 or so people were all experienced and strong cultivators, as well as Ouyang Yuan's sons and daughters. Now that they heard this, how could they have any other thoughts? It was good enough that they could survive. Du Fan looked at them, then walked forward and extracted a strand of divine sense from each of them. Then, he let them go and let them leave first. After dealing with the matters here, the flying ship also left and went out of the forest. Seeing the flying ship leave, the people of the Ouyang family could not help but breathe a sigh of relief. At this time, a young man next to them said, "I thought she would kill us. I didn't think she would let us go." Another person said. After taking a deep breath, he looked at the Ouyang family head. "Family head, are we going out now?" "Let's go." Ouyang Yuan said. Just as he was about to step out, he heard his daughter's voice. "Father, then what about the Grand Elder? Should we take him out?" The woman asked carefully. Hearing this, Ouyang Yuan's face sank. If it weren't for him, we wouldn't have suffered such heavy casualties, and we wouldn't have fallen into such a situation. Now that his cultivation has been destroyed, he can only wait for death. Let's go. Don't care about him. This is what he deserves. When the people heard this, they did not dare to say anything and just quickly left with him. 2 days later, the spaceship stopped and landed somewhere in the forest. Qin Xin was cooking medicinal porridge. This pot of porridge was made with ginseng and spirit chicken caught in the forest. In addition to ginseng, there were also a few medicinal herbs that could replenish qi and adjust one's vitality. A faint medicinal fragrance also diffused along with the light smoke, causing the surroundings to emit a medicinal fragrance. At this moment, Feng Jiu was inserting silver needles into Xianyuan Mo's body. Ever since that person woke up for a while, he hadn't woken up, which made her a little worried. Today, after coming in, she helped him insert the silver needles again to move his meridians and blood. After sitting in the space for a while, she went outside. Seeing Qin Xin cooking porridge, she said to Lung Shuang, "Go and see if the porridge is ready." "Yes." Lung Shuang responded and went down. He came to Qin Xion's side and asked, "Qin Xion, is the porridge ready?" Qin Xion looked back at him and said with a smile, "It's ready. I was just about to bring it to the master." As she said, she scooped a bowl of porridge and sent it to the spaceship. Lung Shuang followed behind. After getting on the spaceship, he saw the master take the porridge and enter the cabin. Chapter 3804. Perhaps it was because he heard Feng Jiu's voice, or perhaps his body was gradually recovering. Xianyuan Mo slowly opened his eyes and looked at Feng Jiu sitting by the bed. Seeing that he had woken up, Feng Jiu was overjoyed and said, "I'll help you sit up and eat." She leaned forward slightly and helped him sit up against the headboard of the bed. When Xianyuan Mo sat up and saw her bulging belly, a trace of daze appeared in his eyes. He stared blankly at her belly. Seeing this, Feng Jiu pursed her lips and smiled. She took his hand and stroked her belly, saying softly, "Mose, we have children. I'm pregnant with twins of mixed sex. In 2 or 3 months, the children will be born." Xianyuan Mose listened to her words, and his mind went blank. He was going to be a father? They had children? For a moment, his chaotic mind gradually became clear, and his heart was filled with ecstasy. But when he thought about how he was unconscious and could not accompany her, especially when she had to take care of him while she was pregnant, he could not help but feel distressed and guilty. "Aju, you've worked hard." He held her hand. His voice was slightly hoarse, and he was still a little weak. "It's not hard." She smiled slightly. She did not tell him that her health was also very bad when she was pregnant, and it was only later that she slowly recuperated. Xianyuan Mose looked around and asked, "Why am I here?" "I'll feed you porridge first. I'll tell you in detail later," Feng Jiu said as she brought the porridge over from the bedside. She scooped up a spoonful and blew on it before feeding it to him. Xianyuan Mose ate the porridge cooperatively. The taste of medicinal herbs in his mouth was mixed with the taste of ginseng. As soon as it entered his stomach, his body gradually warmed up. As he ate, he looked at her. Seeing that her face was rosy and her complexion was good, he was relieved. After finishing the bowl of medicinal porridge, Feng Jiu put the bowl to the side and helped him pull up the quilt. Only then did he say, "Do you still remember the profound light gate we discovered back then? After you were seriously injured and fell into a coma, I helped you recuperate while protecting your heart meridians. However, at that time, I didn't find any method or medicine to treat you. Furthermore, my green lotus has stopped growing after that battle, so it no longer provides any life force. I originally wanted to find an ancient golden lotus to help you expel the black lotus chi in your body. However, after coming here, I haven't been able to find any information about the ancient golden lotus. However, after flipping through the ancient records, I did find some rare and precious elixirs that can expel the black lotus chi. Therefore, I came to the barren land to pick the last medicinal ingredient and refine it into a pill for you to consume. Speaking to this point, she smiled faintly. Fortunately, the pill was successfully refined and the medicinal effects were as I expected. After consuming the pill, the black lotus chi in your body has been completely dispersed. Right now, your body is weak. As long as you rest and recuperate for a period of time, you'll be able to recover. Hearing her words, Xianyuan Mo's eyes slightly moved. It was unknown what he thought of, but a strange look flashed across his eyes. What's wrong? Feng Jiu had been looking at him all this time, so she naturally didn't miss the strange look in his eyes. Xianyuan Mo pressed a hand on his leg and said in a slightly hoarse voice, "My leg doesn't seem to be able to feel it." Ever since he woke up, he found that his leg didn't seem to be able to move. Chapter 38:05. His leg, which should have reacted to her knock, didn't react at all. It was still straight. Seeing this scene, her heart sank. She tried the other side, but it was still the same. There was no reaction at all. Seeing her face change slightly and become serious, his heart was unwilling to part with her. He comforted her, "Jiu, don't worry. Maybe you'll recover after a while." Feng Jiu did not give up and pressed the acupuncture point between his legs, but there was still no reaction. She looked up at him. "When I checked your body had already recovered and the blood between your legs was flowing." I didn't think that. Her voice paused, and she did not continue. Her heart was filled with self-blame. Xianyuan Mo reached out to hold her hand. His low and hoarse voice was filled with indifference. "You don't need to blame yourself. It's already very good that I can wake up. It's just a pair of legs. Even if I can't walk, I can still accompany you. I'll cure you." She looked at him, and her eyes were filled with determination. "I'll definitely cure you. I believe in you." Xianyuan Mo smiled and rubbed her hair. He reached out and pulled her into his embrace with a satisfied smile on his face. "Jiu, being able to wake up and see you again, I'm already very happy. I'm really afraid that if I continue to sleep, I'll miss the chance to give birth to the next generation for me. I'll miss our child's growth. I'll miss everything. But now it's not too late. I'm already very satisfied and very happy." Hearing his words, Feng Jiu's mood gradually eased. She reached out and hugged him as her lips revealed a smile. "You're right. As long as you're by our side, it's enough." As long as she was given time, she would definitely be able to make him stand up again. Because Xianyuan Mo had been in a deep sleep for several months, Feng Jiu told him everything that had happened during this period of time. Then, she told him to rest and recuperate. She would let him out when they returned to the small house in the center of the lake. After all, other than the people around her who knew that she had brought Mose into her space, no one else knew. If he suddenly appeared in front of everyone, they would not be able to explain why he suddenly appeared. At that time, once the fact that she possessed an artifact was exposed, it would only add to her troubles and dangers. Outside, she said to Qin Xian, "Go and call Hui Lang and Du Fan over." "Yes." Qin Xian responded and turned to tell them to board the spaceship. Not long after, everyone gathered around the spaceship. Feng Jiu glanced at Genie Feng and the others who were resting not far away from the spaceship. He stretched out his hand and set up a soundproof barrier. Then, he said to them, "I have two news for you. One is good news, and the other is bad news." When everyone heard this, they could not help exchanging glances. Hui Lang looked at her and asked, "Madam, is the good news that Master has woken up?" Feng Jiu glanced at him and nodded. "That's right. Mose has already woken up. When we return to the city, his body should have recovered." As soon as she finished speaking, everyone could not help but reveal a joyful smile. "That's great. The bad news is that there's something wrong with his legs. He can't stand up," Feng Jiu said, pursing her lips and frowning slightly. Chapter 38:06. Hui Lang. Du Fan shouted and reached out to catch him. If Yama Lord really could not stand up, the person who would be most worried would be his master. Hui Lang seemed to have realized that his words were inappropriate. He pursed his lips and said, "Madam, I I am just worried about Master. I know, Feng Jiao said. Back then, in order to save his life and protect his heart, I sealed the energy of the Black Lotus in his lower body. It is probably because of this that he lost feeling in his legs. However, I will use all means to cure him. Her voice went from light to heavy, especially the last sentence, which showed her determination. I'm telling you all this so that you can be mentally prepared. She looked at them and said, All right, go and rest. We will set off tomorrow morning and speed up the return journey. Yes, everyone replied and watched as she removed the soundproof enchantment and turned to walk towards the cabin. The return journey was as smooth and peaceful as the journey they had come. After about 10 days of travel, they arrived at the mountain path outside her city. When they arrived, Feng Jiao kept the flying ship and sat in the carriage that came to pick her up after receiving the news. Commander Jean, thank you for taking care of us on this journey. If there is a chance in the future, we will work together again. In the carriage, Feng Jiao lifted the curtain and looked at Jean Yifeng and the 20 mercenaries behind him and smiled. Hearing this, Jean Yifeng hurriedly cupped his hands and said, It was all thanks to Madame Xinyuan and everyone else that my 20 brothers were able to return safely. In the future, if Madame needs us for anything, please don't hesitate to ask. This Jean will definitely not refuse. The corners of Feng Jiao's lips curled up slightly as she replied, All right. She then lowered the curtain. As the carriage slowly moved forward, Du Fan, who was at the side, looked at Jean Yifeng and the mercenaries. He smiled and said, Captain Jean, I will have someone send the rest of the commission to you later. Please. He raised his hand and saluted, then followed the carriage and left. Jean Yifeng did not even have time to speak before seeing them leave. Seeing them enter the city first, he then turned to the mercenaries behind him and said, When you go back, remember not to mention anything related to them to anyone, not even the other mercenaries in our group. He paused and said in a low and dignified voice, Keep your mouth shut. This is not only for your own good, but also for the other brothers. Do you understand? Understood. Don't worry, Commander. The 20 mercenaries replied in unison and made a mental note. If it was in the past, they would more or less use it as a joke to show off. However, this time, Madame Xinyuan and the others were so powerful that they did not dare to be impudent in the slightest. Especially after personally witnessing the way they treated some people, they did not dare to act rashly. It's good that you understand. Let's go. Let's go back too. Tonight, we'll call the other brothers to have a good drink and a big meal. Jean Yifeng said with a smile and led them into the city. Chapter 38:07. When she saw this, she smiled and went forward to take a look at the wheelchair. Then, she walked into the room and brought Xinyuan Mo's out of her space. After recuperating, his complexion had recovered, and he looked very energetic. The only thing was that he could not feel his legs. Feng Jiao looked at him and said, Mose, let me help you bathe, she said with a smile. Then, she went outside and ordered the Lung Shuang, who was waiting outside, to prepare water for the bath. Xinyuan Mose looked at her and said, You're pregnant now. How can you do this? Get someone to prepare the water, and I'll do it myself. No, it's not convenient for you to do it yourself, Feng Jiao said. Xinyuan Mo smiled and said, I can't feel my legs, not my hands. Don't worry, I can do it myself. It was just that his legs could not walk. He could still bathe by himself. When she saw this, Feng Jiao thought about it and said, Then I'll help you scrub your back. Don't worry, it won't hurt the child. In the end, Xinyuan Mose agreed to let her stay and help him scrub his back. When the water in the bathtub was ready, Feng Jiao helped him into the wheelchair and pushed him behind the screen. When they arrived at the bathtub, Xinyuan Mose took off his clothes. When he took off his pants, he could not stand up. It was inconvenient. When Feng Jiao saw this, she said, Let me help you. He turned his head and looked at her with a smile as she walked forward. Then, he supported himself with both hands on the sides of the wheelchair. She went forward and bent down to help him take off his pants. After all, he was a young and vigorous man who had been in a coma for a few months. It would have been one thing if he had not had sex in the past, But those who had had sex did not get close to women. Now that the person he loved was in front of him, and she was helping him do such an intimate thing, his heartbeat suddenly became chaotic. There was a faint impulse in his lower abdomen. His body's instinctive reaction made him feel a little awkward at this moment. A Jew was still pregnant, and his legs could not stand up. However, once she got close to him, he actually became so impulsive. He really should not have done so. He tried to suppress the heat in his lower abdomen, but when his pants were taken off and he sat naked in front of her, the impulse that he tried so hard to suppress rose up again. His body's instinctive reaction and her surprised gaze made him a little uncomfortable. Ahem, a Jew, you can go out. I can do it myself. As he spoke, he slapped the wheelchair with both hands, and his entire body flew into the bathtub. The water overflowed as he entered, splashing all over the floor. Fengjiu didn't dodge, and the corner of her skirt was slightly splashed with water. She walked forward and looked at the awkward and arrogant man, and couldn't help but smile. I say, have you forgotten who I am to you? She walked in front of him and raised her eyebrows as she looked at him calmly. Xianyuan Mose was stunned. His deep gaze met her smiling eyes, and his deep voice was magnetic as he said, You are my wife, and my Jew. Fengjiu nodded and said, It's good that you know. As she spoke, her smiling gaze fell on him. She stood in front of him and reached out to untie her belt and take off her coat. Her hands did not stop when the clothes fell to the ground. Instead, she took them off one by one. Jew, what are you doing? Chapter 38:08. Fengjiu smiled charmingly when she heard this, and her beautiful eyes carried a wisp of seductive charm. Could it be that you can't tell what I want to do? Xianyuan Mose's heart skipped a beat. Her voice was gentle and flirtatious, with a hint of seduction. His eyes gradually darkened. He didn't look away again. He just looked at her body that had become full because of her pregnancy. His eyes were burning like flames. He watched as she took off her clothes one by one. She stood naked in front of him. Her snow-white skin was like jade with a gentle luster. Her beautiful figure was as seductive as when she had just gotten married. The only difference was that now she was pregnant with a child. Her twin peaks were fuller, her belly was bulging, and her hips were perky. The mature charm she exuded was even more seductive. Fengjiu stepped on a small chair and stepped into the bathtub. Her body sank, and she sat directly on his legs. The water overflowed from the tub. She leaned forward and leaned close to his body. Say, touch it. She took his hand and placed it on her stomach. Xianyuan Mose lowered his head slightly and looked at her bulging belly in the water. Their hands overlapped and gently pressed against her belly, letting him feel the light kick through her thin belly. Aye, you kicked me, Fengjiu whispered. Looking at his nervous expression, she immediately smiled. Recently, the fetal movement has been more serious. From time to time, it would kick me. Xianyuan Mose was startled by the kick. His hand instinctively shrank back, and his expression became nervous. After hearing her words, he frowned and asked, Does it kick you often? The fetal movement is normal. It's just a light kick. It's not a problem. She chuckled and looked at him. Let me help you wipe your back. Otherwise, the water will turn cold. Hearing this, Xianyuan Mose recovered. He looked at her with dark eyes and said in a hoarse voice, Okay. In the bathtub, after Fengjiu helped him wipe his back, she looked at him and smiled. Her slender white hand gently lifted his chin and leaned over to kiss his lips. Her hand slowly moved down his chest the next day. The two people sleeping on the bed looked gentle and relaxed. In the quiet morning, Xianyuan Mose opened his eyes and looked at Fengjiu in his arms. He couldn't help but reveal a doting smile. One of his hands was used as a pillow by her, and the other hand was originally on her waist. At this moment, he gently lifted it and pushed a strand of hair that fell on her face behind her ear. Perhaps this subtle movement woke her up. She rubbed in his arms and didn't open her eyes. She just murmured, Sleep a little more. Hearing her murmur, Xianyuan Mose couldn't help but smile. He accompanied her to sleep here. It wasn't until close to noon that she lazily opened her eyes in his arms. Awake? A low voice entered her ears. Feng Jiu's face also bloomed with a smile. And awake. She reached out to hug him and said, I'll take you to walk around this small house in the middle of the lake. It's quite big inside, and the scenery is good. Okay, Xin Yuan Mose responded and let her get up first. Chapter 38:09. I'm fine. There's no need to press. As he spoke, he propped himself up with one hand on the bed. His legs were numb, so it was somewhat inconvenient for him. Thus, he moved to the side of the bed and began to put on his clothes. After Feng Jiu got out of bed, she put on her clothes and came over to help him put on his clothes. Then she said, I'll go wash up first. I'll get some water for you later. Xin Yuan Mose took her hand and said, Jiu, just let the servants do it. You're pregnant, so you shouldn't do everything yourself. These things aren't that big of a deal. Moreover, it's good to move around more. She pursed her lips and smiled, saying, I just came back today, so I'll sleep a little later. From tomorrow onwards, you have to accompany me around the Fu more. Hearing this, Xin Yuan Mose said, All right, but things like getting water and washing up can be done by the servants. Don't tire yourself out. Unable to persuade him, Feng Jiu finally compromised and said, All right, then I'll go wash up. I'll get Lung Shuang to bring water in. As she spoke, she called outside. The people in the Fu had been waiting for the two of them to appear since early in the morning, but they didn't see them the entire morning. It wasn't until noon that they heard the sounds of them waking up. In the Fu's garden, Du Fan, Hui Lang, and the others were sitting in the pavilion drinking tea and chatting. When they heard that the two masters had woken up, they couldn't sit still. Let's go over now. Master and Madam should have already washed up, Hui Lang said. He hadn't seen his master for a long time and really wanted to see him. Du Fan smiled and fanned the fan in his hand, saying, Let's go. It's a joyous occasion that the Yama Lord has awakened. We have to celebrate tonight. I'll book a banquet later and call Qi Kong back for a gathering. Luo Yu smiled and said, I sent him a message early in the morning. I reckon he'll be here as soon as he finishes his work. All right, the assassination organization that ambushed you on the way last time has been dealt with. Not a single one of them is left. However, this movement accidentally caused too much of a commotion. Now, the outside world is discussing who it was that uprooted that organization, and we have also released the news. Now, the name of Yin Dian can be said to be well known here. They talked as they walked. When they arrived at the courtyard, they saw that the two masters were already eating in the courtyard. Without waiting for Du Fan and the others to speak, Hui Lang had already rushed forward and looked at Xin Yuan Mose with joy. Master, you're finally awake. Xin Yuan Mose nodded slightly and glanced at Hui Lang. Master, Yama Lord. Du Fan and the others stepped forward and bowed to them. All of you are here? Have you had breakfast? Feng Jiu asked. We've all eaten, Master. Everyone replied. Since you've all eaten, go back and tell Mose about all the things you're doing. Feng Jiu instructed them to go back and tell Xin Yuan Mose about all the forces in their hands and the things they were in charge of, so that he could familiarize himself with all the forces they controlled here. Yes, everyone replied in a low voice. On the other side, in the East City Lord's mansion, Qi Kong was staring at the old man in front of him with a dark expression. I've already said that we don't need the help of the people sent by the immortal sect. Go back to where you came from. Chapter 38:10. Hearing this, Qi Kang's face darkened. He glanced at him coldly and asked, Then let me ask you, does your sect master know that you were sent here? The sect master is in seclusion. Naturally, he doesn't know about this. The old man said slowly. Then what about your great elder? Qi Kong asked again. Great elder went out and hasn't returned yet. The old man didn't even lift his eyelids. Hearing this, Qi Kong didn't ask anymore. He looked at the old man in front of him and said in a deep voice, Guards, get him out of here right now. Don't let him step into the East City Lore Mansion. As soon as his voice rang out, the 4 black-clothed guards in the dark quickly flashed out and surrounded the old man. They stepped forward to seize the old man, but who would have thought that the old man would actually move and avoid their hands? East City Lord, are you going to use force on me? The old man looked at Chi Kong and asked. Chi Kang's face darkened. He said, I'm asking you to leave. I've already made it very clear to you that I don't need a steward from your sect here. East City Lord, you should think carefully. If you chase me out like this, you're disrespecting the people of the immortal sect. You don't care about the etiquette of the immortal sect. Have you thought about the consequences of this? The old man's voice was low and his eyes were filled with displeasure. Obviously, he was very displeased with his lack of understanding. When Chi Kong heard this, the corners of his mouth twitched. It must be one of the peak masters who asked you to come here, right? His voice paused, and he took a step forward with his hands clasped behind his back. His robust body seemed to contain endless power. He stood in front of the old man, and with a somewhat condescending aura, he said, You've lived for so long. Why didn't you think about it? Why didn't your sect leader give the order? Why did your great elder go back early? Also, why am I qualified to be the East City Lord? With every sentence, he took a step forward. Step by step, he forced the old man to step back. He didn't think about it before, but at this moment, he was terrified. Beads of sweat appeared on his forehead, and his heart was in a mess. He was indeed here on the orders of the Peak Master. Now that he heard what the Peak Master said, he was secretly shocked. Take him away. Chi Kong flicked his sleeve and shouted. Several black-clothed men were about to step forward, but at this moment, the old man flicked his sleeve and shouted, I can walk on my own. With that said, he turned around and walked out. After being pestered for the whole morning, Chi Kong finally saw him leave. He secretly breathed a sigh of relief. After handing over the matters of the City Lord's mansion, he prepared to leave. East City Lord, Chi Kong? As soon as he stepped out of the city gates, a thunderous voice rang out. Chi Kong, who had already stepped out of the gates, frowned when he heard the voice. He looked around but saw nothing. Who's there? Chi Kong shouted. He saw a group of black-clothed men holding swords come out and attack him. After the group of black-clothed men attacked with swords, 3 people of different ages and wearing strange clothes came out from the dark. They were staring at Chi Kong, who was not far in front of them. The auras of the 3 people were extremely powerful. It was as if they had merged into one with the space. It was extremely difficult to find them. Moreover, if they hadn't come out on their own, he was afraid that even if he released his divine sense, he wouldn't have been able to find them. Chapter 38:11. Dozens of men in black appeared in front of the governor's mansion and surrounded Chi Kong. The guards in the governor's mansion quickly rushed out. However, after seeing the scene outside, no one dared to approach. The sword formation formed by the dozens of men in black trapped Chi Kong tightly like a spider's web, not giving him a chance to retreat. Trapped in the sword formation, if he was careless, he would be injured by the sword chi. In serious cases, he would even be cut in half at the waist. The sword formation surged with an extremely powerful aura. Just the aura of pressure that permeated the surroundings was enough to make the guards not dare to step forward to help. With such strength, if they stepped forward, they would probably only end up dead. Whoosh! Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The sharp airflow whistled past. Within the sword formation, Chi Kong avoided the blades in the sword formation while looking for a way to break the formation. After about half an hour, he found a way to break the formation. When he struck down with his sword, one of the men in black flew out with a bang. The sword formation instantly scattered and disappeared without a trace. The men in black were repelled by the powerful airflow. One by one, they staggered back a few steps and stared at Chi Kong vigilantly. Chi Kong did not attack them again. Instead, he stared at the 3 men in front. He saw that the 2 men on his left and right looked to be in their 40s or 50s, while the one in the middle was an old man. The old man held a black walking stick in his hand. He looked inconspicuous, but among the 3 men, the old man's aura was the most threatening. Kill him. The old man squinted his eyes and touched the walking stick in his hand. It was as if he was not the one who gave the order to kill. Dozens of men in black surrounded and attacked. Chi Kong frowned. He felt that this would take a lot of time. Thus, he turned his palm, and a flying sword instantly appeared in his hand. A powerful spiritual aura surged from his body and entered the sharp sword in his hand. The sharp sword in his hand quickly emitted a spiritual aura that could be seen with the naked eye. At the tip of the sword, the whistling sword aura swam. In the next moment, the long sword in his hand flew out and placed in front of him. At the same time, the killing intent and pressure contained in his body also burst out at this moment. "You dare to find trouble with me? Die!" Swish! Chi Kong bellowed angrily. Immediately after, the soaring sword slashed down fiercely. The sword chi that was visible to the naked eye formed a huge sword chi that rushed out with a swoosh. It attacked the men in black at a speed that was too fast for the ears to cover. Swish! Ah! Hiss! Ah! Sharp sounds of air currents and screams rang out. The thick smell of blood permeated the air in the next moment. Corpses fell in front of the gates of the city lord's mansion. Blood dyed the ground red, and the citizens watching from afar gasped in shock. Looking at this scene, the three people who had been watching from a distance narrowed their eyes. A sinister look flashed across their vicious eyes. The three of them stood in three different corners, as if they wanted to kill him. Therefore, they did not give him the slightest chance to escape their sight. The sword in Chi Kang's hand was pointed diagonally at the ground, and the aura of spiritual power surged on the blade. He looked at the three people in front of him and asked, "Who are you? Who instigated you to kill me?" "The dead don't need to know," the old man said, his murky and vicious gaze fixed on Chi Kang. Chapter 38:12. The pressure that was visible to the naked eye suddenly burst out and formed a powerful airflow that bounced the two people away. It happened so fast that they could not react in time. "Ah!" The two cultivators screamed as their bodies were bounced back by the airflow. At the same time, the blood in their bodies gushed out from their throats. Puff! Bang, bang. Two figures landed heavily on the ground more than 10 meters away. With just one blow, their faces instantly turned pale. Their bodies were trembling, and blood was still flowing out of their mouths. They couldn't stand up for a while. "A high god, you are hiding your strength." The old man widened his eyes in shock and disbelief. Judging by the powerful pressure that surged out of his body, it was clearly the aura of a high god. Previously, the strength he had displayed was only at the low god stage. He had never imagined that Chi Kang's strength would actually be so powerful. In the entire flying immortal city, only a few people in the immortal sect could be compared to a high deity expert. Chi Kang's face was dignified. He flicked his sleeves and put one hand behind his back. The pressure that surged out of his body was instantly withdrawn. He stood with his hands behind his back, glanced sharply at the old man, and shouted in a deep voice, "Capture them!" Yes. The city guards behind him quickly stepped forward and detained the two cultivators who could not stand up. The old man saw that the situation was not right and immediately wanted to escape. However, as soon as he moved, Chi Kang's figure moved as well. "Since you're here, don't think about leaving." As soon as his voice fell, his figure quickly swept out and his hand formed a claw to attack the old man. His speed was so fast that only a shadow could be seen flashing by. It was impossible to see his movement technique. The pressure of a high god enveloped the old man as his figure swept out. The powerful pressure was like a mountain that pressed down on the old man, making him unable to move even half a step. Because he couldn't move his body, his strength was suppressed by Chi Kang's pressure. Seeing that Chi Kang was about to grab him, the old man's eyes flashed with a trace of ruthlessness and determination. He quickly activated his own spiritual aura, not to escape, but to detonate the inner core in his body and perish together with Chi Kang. Just as Chi Kang was about to grab him, he sensed that something was wrong with his opponent's aura. His expression changed, and he shouted, "Everyone get out of the way! Get out of my way!" A voice filled with pressure and spirit force entered the ears of the surrounding people. Perhaps it was because of the pressure, the surrounding people instinctively retreated after hearing his shout. Just as Chi Kang couldn't stop his hand gesture and could only roll in the air to avoid it, The old man raised his head and laughed heartily. Then, a loud explosion was heard. Bang! A powerful airflow erupted from the old man's body, like a landmine exploding, causing dust and mud to splatter. The airflow that splashed out whooshed towards the surroundings, causing many people to be injured by the airflow as they were unable to dodge in time. Chapter 38:13. Chi Kong frowned and looked around. He saw that many people had been injured by the flying rocks and air currents. Their heads were bleeding and they were wailing on the ground. Hence, he ordered in a deep voice, "Send the injured people to the medical hall for treatment and bandaging." "Yes," the city guard replied, and sent a group of people to bring the injured people to the nearest medical hall. "Clean up the ground and find out where they came from." He glanced around and looked at a middle-aged man beside him. "Lock up the two of them and wait for me to come back and interrogate them." "Yes," the middle-aged man replied. He did not dare to delay and quickly detain the two people. However, at this moment, the city guard's exclamation was heard. "Governor, it's not good. They're dead." The middle-aged man was shocked. He instinctively glanced at Chi Kong and quickly went to check on the two cultivators who had been put on the ground. Not long after, he quickly came to Chi Kang's side. "Governor, the two of them bit the poison pills hidden in their mouths. They're dead." He lowered his head and did not dare to look at him. This person died before he could interrogate them. In the end, it was his negligence. Chi Kong frowned and glanced at the two corpses. He did not expect that the two of them would choose to bite the poison pills and commit suicide after seeing the old man explode himself. However, who would want to kill him? Because of this episode, he wanted to go out and meet his master, but he turned back to the governor's mansion. It was not until evening that he left the governor's mansion through the back door and went to the small house in the middle of the lake. The scene that happened in front of the East City Governor's Mansion today had quietly spread, although they did not know who the people who dared to go to the East City Governor's Mansion were. However, after this incident, the various forces in the city and the other three governors' manors knew that Chi Kang's strength was already at the level of a great deity. In a family, the head of the family who heard the news was having a discussion with a few managers in the family. "I heard from the people nearby that the East City Lord, Chi Kong, emitted an aura that was at the peak of the high god level. Since the last City Lord election, many people have been inquiring about his background, but there is still no news. Head of the family, in our city, only the patriarchs of a few families have the strength of a great deity. Otherwise, only the high-level experts in the celestial sect are qualified to be mentioned in the same breath as him. There are pros and cons for such a powerful person to become the East City Governor." Hearing this, another person asked, "What's the pros and cons?" The person who spoke glanced at that person and continued, "The strength of the Eastern City Lord of the Flying Immortal City is so powerful, the other forces naturally wouldn't dare to act rashly in the Flying Immortal City. This is a good thing, but the bad thing is I'm worried that after he has been in a high position for a long time, his strength will be the strongest among the four city lords." Chapter 38:14. Such a character. What kind of family does he come from? Why can't we find any information about him? An old man frowned and stroked his beard as he pondered. It's impossible for an outstanding character to be unknown, let alone such a character. Especially this Dongfang City Lord's temperament is not something an ordinary person can compare to. From this, it can be seen that he must be a famous character. The middle-aged man sitting next to him said, "But it's true. Not only did the people we sent not find any information about Dongfang City Lord Chi Kong, even the people from other forces were the same. No one has any information about him. It's as if he appeared out of thin air." Appeared out of thin air? The old man stroked his beard and shook his head. "No, it's impossible for a person to appear out of thin air. It's just that his origin is mysterious and we can't find anything about him." "But what kind of origin could it be that we can't find anything about him?" "Unless..." The head of the family hesitantly opened his mouth, but didn't say it out loud. There was only uncertainty in his eyes. Everyone in the hall looked at the pondering family head. Seeing that he didn't have any intention to speak, they couldn't help but look at each other. One of them asked, "Family head, unless what?" The family head looked at them and paused for a moment before saying, "Unless he's not from our continent." As soon as these words came out, everyone was stunned. A middle-aged man said in surprise, "Not from our continent? How is that possible? If he's here, then he must be from our continent. Maybe he's from some mysterious family." Speaking of the word mysterious, it reminds me of the people on the bounty list a few months ago. A middle-aged man said thoughtfully. Another person looked at him and said, "Aren't those people on the bounty list the ones who killed the immortal sex peak master and crippled their disciples?" It said that they later destroyed several families that put them on the bounty list. This matter was so big that even the people on the bounty list didn't dare to accept any bounties on them. It's because of this that other than some people who have seen the portraits on the bounty list, no one knows what they look like or where they come from. As soon as these words were spoken, everyone in the hall fell silent. No one spoke, as if they were thinking. There's only one East City Lord. You shouldn't be related to those people, right? Another middle-aged man said, "Besides, when the City Lord was chosen that day, the people of the immortal sect were all watching from the stage. If it really was East City Lord Chi Kong, how could he?" At this point, he suddenly stopped talking, as if he had thought of something. He opened his mouth, but no sound came out. Everyone in the hall seemed to think of something. They glanced at each other and thought back to when the immortal sex Duan Yunha saw Chi Kong. He was so shocked that he smashed his teacup. After a long time, the head of the family took a deep breath and said, "Let's leave it at that. It's good that you know. Don't tell anyone about this, lest you get into trouble." Everyone stood up with a solemn expression and replied solemnly, "Yes, we understand." Chapter 38:15. Master, speaking of which, our Lin family hasn't paid a visit to the East City Lord's mansion yet, right? The old man looked at the master and asked, "Should we find a time to pay a visit?" The master nodded, "Yes, I'll arrange it. I won't go these 2 days, so as not to make it seem too deliberate. Let's stay for a few days. I'll go to the East City Lord's mansion for a while." Hearing this, everyone secretly breathed a sigh of relief. After discussing some matters with the patriarch for a while, they all left. On the other side, Chi Kong, who they were talking about, was passing by other courtyards alone and came to the small house in the middle of the lake. It was already dark, and he was wearing a navy blue robe, so he was not conspicuous in the night. He turned and went into the small house in the middle of the lake, and heard Du Fan's voice with a smile. "City Lord Chi, you're finally here. The others are all here, and we're waiting for you." Du Fan smiled and walked towards him, still holding his fan in his hand. Chi Kong looked at Du Fan and said, "You're too free, aren't you? That's why you're so free. If you're too free, you could go to the East City Lord's mansion and help me do something." "Haha, that won't do. I have to stay by your side and watch over you. Occasionally, when you want to eat something, I can run errands or something." He smiled and waved the fan in his hand gently. He came to Chi Kang's side and put one hand on his shoulder, saying, "Let's go. Tonight, we've prepared good wine and dishes to celebrate. But I heard that someone went to ambush you and went to the East City Lord's mansion." "Yes, it doesn't seem like people from this city. They should be from other places. They're all dead before we find out who sent them," Chi Kong said and followed him inside. Could it be someone sent by the previous City Lord? After all, you've just taken over the City Lord's mansion, so you shouldn't have the chance to offend anyone. Du Fan smiled. He was not worried that Yi Futian would be injured. In his opinion, Yi Futian was the strongest among the 8 captains of the Phoenix Guard. Unless Yi Futian wanted to be injured, who could fight against him? Chi Kang's lips curled into a smile, but he didn't say much. He only asked, "Where's Master?" "Oh, the Yama Lord is awake. Although he can't walk now, Master has been taking care of him. They should be in the courtyard right now." Chi Kong nodded and said, "You go first. I'll go to my master and the Yama Lord, and I'll go with them to the front yard." "All right, then hurry up. Remember to call Master and the Yama Lord over." Du Fan patted him on the shoulder and said, before walking away, "At the front, Hui Lang, Luo Yu, and the others were gathered there. Several tables were filled with food, wine, and fruits. In front of each of them, there was a short table for them to put their things. Du Fan, didn't you go to pick up Chi Kong? Why are you back? Where's Chi Kong? Seeing him come back alone, Luo Yu raised his voice and asked. He went to Master's place. He'll be here in a while. Du Fan answered. He walked to a small chair at the side and sat down. He poured himself a glass of wine and drank. News came from outside today that the East City Lord was ambushed. Is he okay? Bai Qingsheng asked worriedly. Chapter 38:16. While they were chatting, Chi Kong went to the main courtyard. After meeting Xianyuan Mose and Feng Jiu, he told them about the current situation in the East City Lord's mansion, as well as the information he had found after taking over. Master, during this time, I've read the archives in the East City Lord's mansion and found some clues about the ancient Golden Lotus. But I'm not sure yet. Hearing Chi Kang's words, Feng Jiu was surprised. There's news about the ancient Golden Lotus? Master, please have a look. Chi Kong took out a shabby book and handed it to Feng Jiu. I saw it in this continent records. It's recorded on page 135 that 100 years ago, the light of the Golden Lotus appeared in the myriad Buddha's sect and shone on the earth. The trees within 100 miles of the myriad Buddha's sect grew rapidly overnight, and hundreds of flowers bloomed. As Feng Jiu listened, she flipped to the 135th page. Indeed, there was information about the ancient Golden Lotus. However, there were only a few words on it. Xianyuan Mose, who was sitting in a wheelchair, listened to their words and pondered for a while. Then he slowly said in a low voice, the myriad Buddha's sect is not one of the 4 sects, but a Buddhist sect that is above all the sects on this continent. It is said that this sect has not appeared for 100 years, and almost no one knows where it is. Feng Jiu was slightly surprised. He looked sideways at him and asked curiously, How do you know? Xianyuan Mose smiled faintly. I've been reading some books about this continent recently. Because he could not walk, he sat all day and did not have to deal with other things, so he found a lot of ancient books to read. It was because of this that he knew something about the myriad Buddhist sect. Hearing this, Feng Jiu pursed his lips and smiled. I don't know anything about the myriad Buddhist sect. I've only heard of the 4 Immortals sect before. Only when Chi Kong told me today did I know that the myriad Buddhist sect is above all the sects on this continent. Master, I'll investigate this matter. When I get the news and determine the location of the myriad Buddhist sect, I'll report it to you. Chi Kong looked at the two of them and said, They are all in the front yard. Master, do you want to go with the Yama Lord? Feng Jiu handed the book back to him and said, You can keep this. Let's go. Let's go together. Therefore, Chi Kong came behind Xianyuan Mose and pushed the wheelchair, walking with them to the front yard. At the same time, the person who returned to the immortal sect arrived at Peak Master Sun's main peak. After having a disciple report to him, he stood outside and waited. Not long after, Peak Master Sun walked out with his hands behind his back. Looking at the old man standing there, he frowned and asked, Didn't I tell you to go to the East City Lord Mansion? Why are you back? The old man stepped forward and said, Peak Master, Chi Kong of the East City Lord's Mansion drove me out. He said that the people of our immortal sect should not interfere in the affairs of the East City Lord's Mansion, so I came back first. Hearing this, Peak Master Sun's face darkened. Who is this Chi Kong? How dare he drive people of our immortal sect out? Isn't he afraid of offending our immortal sect? You're really arrogant once you reach the top. Chapter 38:17. Perhaps it was because Peak Master Sun could not bear to hear him speak so highly of Chi Kong. His face darkened as he glanced at him and said in a contemptuous tone, Just a mere East City Lord. How is he not an ordinary person? Besides, he's only been in the position for a short time. He probably hasn't even warmed up to the position of the East City Lord yet. Peak Master, Chi Kong is a peak high god, the old man said with a serious face. He looked at Peak Master Sun, whose face had changed greatly because of his words. He sighed inwardly, No wonder the Great Elder came back early and didn't leave the people of the immortal sect at the East City Lord's mansion. He probably already knew about Qi Kang's true strength. What? A peak high god? How is that possible? Are you mistaken? Peak Master Sun's face changed, and he looked at him in disbelief. How could a mere city lord of the East District be a pinnacle high god expert? I'm not mistaken. Not long after I was driven out today, a group of people, he told them what happened in front of the gate of the East City Lord's mansion. In the end, he said, if it weren't for the two cultivators who were ruthless and killed him, they probably wouldn't have been able to force him to show his true strength. Many people saw it at that time. I think the news has already spread in the city. Hearing this, Peak Master Sun's face became serious. What is this Qi Kang's background? Where did he come from? He pondered and walked a few steps with his hands behind his back. Then he stopped and turned back to the old man. Go and listen. You must find out about him. The old man hesitated. He stood there and didn't answer. He didn't leave either. He just looked at Peak Master Sun with hesitation. What? Do you have something to say? If you have something to say, say it. Don't hesitate. Peak Master Sun said in a low voice. Peak Lord, I think it's best not to inquire about him anymore. You haven't come into contact with him, but after making a trip today and coming into contact with him, I feel that this person is very threatening. In front of him, I don't even dare to straighten my back and speak. The old man paused for a moment before continuing. When his sharp gaze swept over me, I felt as if my entire body was frozen in place. A wave of fear surged up from the soles of my feet straight to my heart. The kind of pressure, that kind of shock, he is not an ordinary person at all. I guess that his origin must be mysterious and extraordinary. Many forces and families have already been asking about him, but no one has any news about him. It was as if he had appeared out of thin air. No one knows where he came from. After hearing his words, Peak Lord's son fell silent. He didn't say anything for a long time. He just stared off into the distance, thinking about something. The old man didn't know whether to leave or stay. Looking at the silent young man, he could only lower his head and wait quietly at the side. After a long while, Peak Master Sun seemed to have regained his senses. He glanced at the old man and said, That's enough. You may leave. Yes. The old man responded, bowed, and turned to leave. Qi Kang, a peak high god expert? Peak Master Sun murmured to himself. He wanted to meet this person. The night was getting darker. The dark and mysterious night sky was twinkling with stars. The white crescent moon hung in the night sky. It was so peaceful and gentle. Chapter 38:18. As the days went by, Fengjiu's belly grew bigger day by day. Especially when she was pregnant with twins, her belly was bigger than usual, which made her daily life more inconvenient. Especially when he saw how big her belly was, Xinyuan Mose was on tenterhooks every day as he pushed his wheelchair and followed her around. He was worried about this and that. It could be said that whenever Fengjiu wanted to do something herself, he would look nervous at the side. Just like now, Fengjiu was sitting at the table in the courtyard, flipping through an ancient medicine book. An old yellow paper between the books fell to the ground because of her flipping. She glanced sideways and was about to bend down to pick it up, but Xinyuan Mose, who was sitting next to her, had already shouted nervously, Don't move! Lung Shuang, pick it up. Xinyuan Mose saw that she still wanted to bend down with such a big belly and couldn't help but break out in a cold sweat. He pushed the wheelchair to her side and held her hand with one hand to let her sit down. Fengjiu was stunned for a moment and then laughed. It's nothing. It's just picking up a piece of paper. It's nothing serious. Your belly is so big now. Let them do things like bending down to pick up things, Xinyuan Mose said with a straight face, but his eyes were full of worry. Ever since he had woken up, he had seen her belly grow bigger day by day, especially in the past month. When she was bathing, he had seen how thin her belly was, and he had been on tenterhooks. When he slept at night, he did not dare to touch her belly, for fear that his hand would press down on her belly. However, she was a restless person when she slept, which really gave him a headache. Okay. Let Ling Shuang come and pick it up. Feng Jiu said helplessly, sitting still. Lang Shuang picked up the things and handed them to her, and then quietly retreated to a corner. At the stairs in the courtyard, Qin Xian was also flipping through the medicine book. You've been reading for the whole morning. Don't read for too long. I'll walk with you to the front yard. Xianyuan Mose closed the book in her hand. Hearing this, Feng Jiu smiled. Okay, I've been sitting for a long time. It's time to walk. She stood up and said, I'll push you. No, I could do it by myself. You could just follow me, Xianyuan Mose said, and put his hands on the mechanism of the wheelchair. He pressed it gently, and the wheelchair moved forward. Feng Jiu looked at him and walked beside him and smiled. This wheelchair is really good. It'll be more convenient for you to use. Well, I'll get used to it, Xianyuan Mose replied. Hearing this, Feng Jiu looked at him and said, I'll cure your legs. You'll definitely be able to stand up again. Her voice was calm, but there was confidence in it. She was telling him that as long as she was given time, she would definitely find a way to cure his legs. It was not impossible, but something that she would definitely do. The two of them walked around the small house in the center of the lake. Lang Shuang and Qin Xian followed them unhurriedly about 10 steps behind. After walking around, Xianyuan Mose looked at Feng Jiu, whose forehead was sweating a little, and said, Are you tired? Let's sit over there. Okay, Feng Jiu replied. She gently supported her waist with one hand, walked to the stone table under the tree, and sat down to rest. Chapter 38:19. Hearing this, Xianyuan Mose couldn't help but look at her with pity. He wanted to say something, but he didn't know what to say. These days, she was pregnant and couldn't eat. She often got up in the middle of the night, and sometimes couldn't sleep well. Her legs were slightly swollen. He saw all these, but he couldn't share the burden for her. He just quietly stayed by her side and watched her bear all this. He was secretly distressed. Qin Xian, go to the kitchen and bring the stewed soup. Xianyuan Mose turned to Qin Xian, who was not far away. Yes. Qin Xian responded and went to the kitchen. Stewed soup again? When Feng Jiu heard this, he looked like he had nothing to live for. God knows that these days he asked the kitchen staff to stew soup to nourish her body. Every day, she ate so much that she wanted to vomit. Now you eat 3 people's nourishment. You have to eat more nutritious things. Otherwise, your body is too weak. As Xianyuan Mose spoke, he gently caressed her stomach with one hand and felt the heartbeat of the 2 little lives in her stomach. When the palm of his hand touched her belly, the children in her belly kicked gently so that his palm felt their existence. He couldn't help shaking his head and laughing. It must be that bastard kicking you again. When he comes out in the future, I'll teach him a good lesson. Feng Jiu didn't know whether to laugh or cry. That bastard is also your son. Besides, maybe it's my daughter who is kicking me? Daughters are generally more well-behaved. Only sons are more naughty, Xianyuan Mose said matter-of-factly. Seeing the matter-of-fact look on his face, Feng Jiu couldn't help laughing. You will definitely spoil your daughter very much in the future. I just don't know who our 2 children will be like. Naturally, they will be like the 2 of us, Xianyuan Mose said. Feng Jiu rolled his eyes. Our children must be like the 2 of us. So I mean, will they look more like you? Or more like me? The daughter will be like you, and the son will be like me, Xianyuan Mose said. As soon as the words fell, a smile appeared on his face. It seemed that he was imagining the appearance of the 2 little people in front of them in the future. The husband and wife here discussed here, laughing from time to time. Lang Shuang, who was not far away, looked at them. Not long after, Qin Xian brought the stewed soup to the table. Master, this soup should be drunk while it's hot. Okay, you can leave first. As Xianyuan Mo spoke, he took the bowl of soup and blew on it. Seeing that it was still smoking, he said to Feng Jiu, It's too hot. Let's cool it down first. Don't burn yourself. Yes. Feng Jiu looked at him with one hand under his chin. Seeing him sitting in the wheelchair and holding the bowl of stewed soup in his hand to cool it down, Feng Jiu couldn't help but be infatuated with him. He was so outstanding. His handsome and resolute face had the unique charm of a man. Especially after going through so many things, he had become more mature and steady. His every move made people feel at ease. It made her feel that as long as he was by her side, no matter where she was, she would feel peaceful and at ease. The two of them had been to so many places, and there were mansions everywhere. But everywhere they went, as long as he was there, her heart would be at ease, and it was where her home was. Chapter 38:20. Feng Jiu pursed her lips into a smile. I think you're very pleasing to the eye. The years were so peaceful, and the days were so sweet. All of this was not easy to come by. Hearing her words, Xin Yuan Mo's black eyes also revealed a smile. He put the soup in his hand on the table and reached out to hold her hand. Their fingers intertwined, and a deep voice with a trace of love and affection came out of his mouth. The days are long. You can slowly appreciate it. The days are long, she softly replied. Seeing him push the bowl of soup in front of her, she picked it up and took a sip. How is it? Is it still hot? Xin Yuan Mo's asked. No, it's just right. This was a nourishing stew. She drank a bowl every morning and night for the past few days. During this time, she felt that she had gained more than one size. After drinking the soup, she handed it to Qin Xin, who was waiting on the side. She saw him take out a small package from his sleeve. What is it? She peeked her head out to look. Sugar lotus seeds. Xin Yuan Mo's opened the small paper package in his hand and said, Didn't you say that you're tired of drinking soup every day? I specially had someone buy sugar lotus seeds. Every time you drink a bowl of soup, you can eat one or two. As he spoke, he used a bamboo stick wrapped in the paper package to poke one in her mouth. Try it. Feng Jiu's heart was filled with sweetness. With a smile on her face, she glanced at him and opened her mouth to eat the sugar-coated lotus seed. The fine sugar powder in her mouth was accompanied by the fragrance of the lotus seed. It was sweet and delicious, and she couldn't help but narrow her eyes. It's delicious. Seeing that he was about to put it away, she said, You can keep it for me. I can eat it when I'm free. Don't eat too much. 1 or 2 occasionally is enough, so I'll keep it, Xin Yuan Mo's said as he gave her another one. Then he said, Do you want to go back and sleep? Feng Jiu looked at him and said with a smile, I'm going back to sleep after drinking a bowl of soup? Aren't you afraid that I'll be so fat that you won't be able to recognize me? Xin Yuan Mo's couldn't help but chuckle. I could recognize you even when your face was ruined. You've only gained weight. How could I not recognize you? Hearing his words, Feng Jiu was slightly startled. He said softly, That's right. Back then, you were able to recognize me even when I was like that. Now that I think about it, I didn't even realize that so many years had passed. We've encountered quite a lot of things over the years. She lowered her eyes and said slowly, Every time I feel happy that we can be together, I will think of Emo Chun who has passed away. I always feel like I owe him. Hearing her mention Emo Chun, Xin Yuan Mo's eyes flashed. He thought of the scene during the battle when Nailin Emo Chun was dying and the name she called out. We all owe him, Xin Yuan Mo said. He held Feng Jiu's hand and said, But he also wanted us to be happy. He wanted you to be happy too. This was his wish. Now that he's gone, we should live our lives well. Only when we're happy can we live up to everything he sacrificed his life for. Feng Jiu looked up at him and stared into his black eyes. After a long time, he nodded. Yes, you're right. Even if he's gone, we'll never forget him. Chapter 38:21. What's the matter? Xin Yuan Mo's looked at her and asked. Come with me. As she spoke, she took his hand and flicked her sleeve. In the next moment, the two of them disappeared from Lung Shuang and Qin Xion's sight. Lung Shuang and Qin Xion saw the two of them disappear out of thin air. They did not say anything and just watched quietly, standing in place and waiting. Those who followed their master all knew that he had a secret space treasure. Otherwise, he would not have been able to bring the Yama Lord here while he was unconscious. And this was something that only his confidants knew. Xin Yuan Mo's saw that she had brought him into the space and was surprised. However, he did not ask any questions and just let her push his wheelchair to the space spirit spring. Look, there's a small golden lotus growing in the spirit spring. This golden lotus is emitting a faint golden light. Fengjiu looked at the small golden lotus in the water and said, when Emo-chan disappeared, he only left behind a golden lotus seed. This golden lotus seed was one of the golden lotus seeds that we obtained from the Stairway of Immortality. I gave him one, and he kept it with him. I didn't expect that when he disappeared, only this golden lotus seed did not disappear. Xianyuan Mose looked at the small golden lotus and saw that it was floating in the spirit spring. Because the golden lotus was so small, if one did not look carefully, or if Fengjiu did not say anything, it would not have been easy to notice. The golden lotuses we obtained from the Stairway of Immortality were no ordinary objects. Even though they were not the original bodies of the ancient golden lotuses, they still had the aura of the ancient golden lotuses. Emo-chan left behind this lotus seed. Perhaps. He paused for a moment as he looked at the tiny golden lotus. Perhaps what? Fengjiu looked at him. Xianyuan Mose looked up and said, do you remember that you told me that Tianjizi once said that Emo-chan was born because of you and will also die because of you? You are the only one who can break through his tribulation of life. Fengjiu was slightly startled and did not say anything. Xianyuan Mose looked at the spring water in front of him and said thoughtfully, maybe he can be reborn again. Fengjiu's heart trembled as his gaze fell on the tiny golden lotus. Could Emo-chan be reborn? Would he appear again? Will he come back to life? Countless thoughts flashed through his mind, and in the end, only a soft murmur remained. If he can appear again, I only hope that the reborn him can live for himself. Xianyuan Mose didn't say anything. He just accompanied her quietly by the side of the spirit spring. After a while, the two people came out of the space. Go back to your room and sleep for a while. Xianyuan Mose looked at Fengjiu and said, rest more, don't be too tired. Without waiting for Fengjiu to speak, he ordered Lung Shuang and Qin Exant, send your masters back to rest. Yes. The two people responded and looked at each other before walking forward. Fengjiu looked at him and asked, what about you? Aren't you going back to the courtyard with me? You woke up early today. Why don't you go back and sleep? I have some things to instruct Hui Lang. You go back first. I'll be there later. He patted her hand, indicating that she should go back first. Seeing this, Fengjiu didn't ask any more questions. He just nodded and followed Lung Shuang and the others back. Xianyuan Mose sat in the same place and watched her leave. When she couldn't be seen, he withdrew his gaze and called, Yi. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.